Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Inspire Africa. I'm Barbara Lundu. Here are the headlines. We will start with West Africa. In Abidjan, Axel Emmanuel Gbaou is a chocolate maker who wants more Ivorians to process cocoa locally. He trains women to be more autonomous. We will then go to Central Africa. In Brazzaville, Krist Ondziel Bangui has just opened a small training center to encourage visually impaired people like him to learn computer skills so they can diversify the professional profiles. Finally, we go to East Africa. In Salaam, Syriacus Bugunzi had just launched a science newspaper in Swahili so that science lovers who are not completely at ease with English or French would not be troubled by the language barrier. Ivory Coast is the world's largest exporter of cocoa, but here is the paradox. The country produces very little chocolate. Fortunately, things have been changing in recent years, thanks in particular to local entrepreneurs who introduce you to one of them with a lot of ambition for his country.
In his Abidjan shop, chocolatier Axel Emmanuel Gbaou sells cocoa in all its forms: chocolate bars, chocolate cashew nuts, cocoa butter, chocolate ice cream. The list is long. The former banker left his job a few years ago to embark on this new adventure. What motivates me to be a chocolate maker, even though I was a banker, is the fact that we see so much absurdity all around us in the economic sector. We are the world's leading cocoa-producing country, and there are no local chocolate bars on the supermarket shelf. Today, his chocolate made in Côte d'Ivoire is also sold in other African countries, as well as in Europe and Asia. It is an honor for me to be able to process locally. Processing locally brings a lot to the local economy. It frees our minds from all thinking that Africans don't know how to make things. And I decided to be able to put myself on the side of those who are actors in the revolution by making things and showing the world that made in Africa is something that can be sold here and everywhere in the world. His ambitions and his commitment to local production do not stop here because he wants to pass on his knowledge to others. We joined Axel Emmanuel in this women's cooperative in Tomoudi, a small town about 200 kilometers north of Abidjan. The chocolate craftsman regularly travels to different regions of Côte d'Ivoire. He teaches women farmers how to process cocoa into chocolate so that they can sell their products themselves. It was curiosity that attracted us to this field, but since we have been in it, we have seen that we have income that helps us support our families, pay school fees, and support our husbands in household expenses. Axel Emmanuel has already trained more than 2,000 women cocoa farmers in the processing of this raw material. They make their own chocolate to the delight of the Ivorian people.
We are now heading to Congo, more precisely to the capital Brazzaville. We will introduce you to Krist Ondziel Bangui with his savings. He has just set up a small training center so that visually impaired people like him can learn IT.
Like every morning, Krist Bangui gets ready to go to work. Thanks to his savings, the 27-year-old who studied and worked for several years in Morocco has opened a training center in Congo's capital of Brazzaville to enable visually impaired people like him acquire IT skills. But first, he makes a little detour to the electronics store, where he hopes to find computers suitable for the visually impaired and at a good price. The center only has 5 computers for about 50 students. That's very expensive compared to our budget. After a disappointing trip to the computer shop, Bangui heads to the center where classes will soon begin. There are people who are mathematicians, economists, accountants, IT experts. Today, thanks to this training, we want visually impaired people to have diverse professional profiles like other people. The participants in this training are between the ages of 15 and 40. They are students, unemployed graduates, civil servants, and others. We have already learned how to enter text. It's already very important for us because it allows us a degree of autonomy. Andre Malamba is another of Bangui's students. The 26-year-old never misses a class. A graduate of journalism, Malamba is full of ambition. Behind IT, I have a big dream that I have to associate with my job as a journalist. Because nowadays we need to associate everything with digital. Despite the financial difficulties he's encountering, Bangui wants to go further and extend this training to children under 15.
Before presenting our guest, I'd like to show you this map of African continent. In green are the countries and areas where Swahili is spoken. In total, this represents more than 120 million people. It is for them that Syriacus Bugunzi launched a few weeks ago a science newspaper in Swahili that deals with topics such as artificial intelligence, global warming, and COVID-19. Hello, Syriacus. How did you come up with the idea of this newspaper?
Yeah, actually, the idea started when I was still at the University of Sheffield in the UK. One thing I was actually trying to contemplate about is how do Tanzanians access science information? The largest audience is Swahili. Now, how do you make sure that these Tanzanians who consume information in Swahili also get the science? I said when I go back to my country, one thing I must now try to come up with is a newspaper in Swahili focusing on science.
Did the COVID-19 pandemic also inspire you to create this newspaper?
Indeed. During COVID-19, everybody turned into a science journalist. Anyone would communicate anything. There was a lot of fake news circulating around, and one of the ways to counter it is to look for this solid scientific evidence. Because if you look at what we cover, actually, information based on research, we have to make sure that the research is published and has been peer reviewed, and we are sure about the scientific conclusions that are made out of that study or research. So you can say, in one way or another, the pandemic has been like a catalyst in terms of coming up with such initiatives.
And how did you make these scientific topics more understandable?
What we do, we try to humanize the stories. We should try to humanize the science. In our first edition, for instance, we looked at our mountain, Kilimanjaro, which has been losing its gracia because of global warming. And then one of the things we thought we should look at is now going on the ground to see what people think, and if people think that this is something that concerns them. So what we are looking at is the active community participation in such scientific processes. And if they feel that this is the thing that affects their lives, what can they do about it?
Do you find it difficult to translate some of the scientific terms?
Yeah, it is true. They're very challenging because Swahili is still a growing language. Now, you can imagine the stages it is going through. Do the stages match with the growing technology? Obviously not. There are things that need to be sorted out at this particular moment, where certain things that are emerging, like artificial intelligence, actually incorporated in the language. So it's a challenge, yes. And one thing that we are trying to address here is actually enriching the people with science, is how to have an opportunity where language experts in Swahili will be able to come and actually address some language barriers in communicating science to the people.
Lastly, what is your long-term ambition?
My global ambition is to take part in this growing efforts of expanding the access of science to the people who cannot get the information. We have so many people in local languages who do not have access to science. And this is not particular to the Swahili-speaking communities. When we published our first edition, then we saw reactions from people in Ethiopia, people in Southern Africa, saying this thing should also come in our language. We have people in Zambia who are saying, we need also a newspaper to address, issues of science in our language. So we are trying to inspire Africa in a way. And actually, being invited here to speak about this newspaper is also, I feel like we are accomplishing our goal of inspiring Africa and inspiring the world.
Thank you, Syriacus, for answering our questions, and good luck with your newspaper, Mwanya Sinyansi.
Yeah, thank you so much for interviewing me.
It is said that music softens the mood, so we will leave you with Gides Chalamanda. He is a 92 years old singer from Malawi. A few years ago, he released a song in honor of his daughter, and in the last few months, the song has gone viral on TikTok. It has been downloaded more than 2 million times by users all over the world. Today, Gides hopes to benefit from the royalties, so we'll leave you with an extract of his song. See you soon on Africanews.
Kukacha mama wa amatengazaje kusesa bakomo pamaibaje kukacha mama early morning amatengazaje kusesa bakomo